So do I. So, we will do that. Well, grace, peace, and mercy to you from God our Father and our Lord and Savior, Jesus the Christ. Oh, that's my dog. That was part of a children's message. I have a very cute dog. It's a great story. Now you get to hear it in a sermon sometime. But so, back home, back in Birmingham, I should say, this is home now, I have a very dear friend. His name is Greg. He's a guy that I've known since I was in elementary school. Grew up going to the same church together. He was the best man at my wedding. He's one of these guys who's always been there. He's seen me at my best. He's helped me get back from my absolute worst. He's honest with me. He sticks by me even when I don't listen to him. He's one of those guys that after so much time I've developed such a love and respect for him that he honestly could come to me and ask me for anything, and I'd probably do it for him. He could ask me for my right arm, and the only thing that would come to mind is, do you mean above or below the elbow, and you want my left arm for a spare? You ever had a friend like that? Just somebody so dear to you that they mean the world to you. You have this just brotherly love for them, sisterly love for them that they mean the world. You do anything for them just because of that love. I want you to imagine just for a moment that person in your life. And that one day this person calls you up and says, listen, I really need to talk. Can we meet? And you could tell just immediately in their voice that there's something pretty wrong right now. That there's something pretty heavy going on in their life. And of course you agree to meet. And the second that they come into the room, you can just tell by the look in their eyes, the expression on their face, that there really is something going on with this friend, that there is something seriously wrong. And you're concerned, and you're just waiting to hear. You're thinking, man, maybe it's cancer, maybe the marriage is breaking, what's going on? And after a few minutes of just catching up, your friend just lays it out on you. I don't know if you've ever had this experience with someone going through a difficult time. Your friend says, listen, I've known you for years, and I knew that I could just come to you with this. I can come to you with anything, and I've really got something going on I need your help with. And before you can even say, what, above or below the elbow, he says, well, it's not really me. It's actually my kid, my son, my daughter. He says that, I know that you don't know my kid very well, but for a while now, we've just been growing apart. And it's gotten so bad that they don't even talk to me anymore. We used to be so close when they were younger. We used to do all these great things together, and now they just can't seem to stand me. It's like I don't even exist. It's like I'm dead to them. And the people that they're hanging out with and the things that they're doing, it just breaks my heart because I see what's happening to them, and I feel like I can't do anything at all. And then your friend says that not only will they refuse to talk with me and let them into their lives, but pretty recently they left home, and now I don't even know what's going on with them. You can tell your friend is just absolutely brokenhearted. I don't know if any of you have ever had that experience with a child or a grandchild, but I think we all know someone who had a child that went a little wayward, that went through some pretty difficult times, and we've seen this in a lot of families. And then your friend says, in fact, that this is what I really wanted to talk with you about. You see, my friend, I know you don't know my kid. I know that you never really met him or talked with him or anything, but they're not willing to talk with me, so maybe they would be willing to talk with you. Would you be willing just to meet with them, maybe buy them a cup of coffee, talk with them, see if you can get those lines of communication again? I so desperately want to talk with my kid. And they continue saying, look, I'm not asking you to change anything. I'm not asking you to fix anything. I'm not asking you to turn their lives around. I was just hoping you could spend just a little time with them. Just get them to speak with me again. I'm sure that if you could do that, we could work things out. If I could just speak with them and talk with them, we could get on the same page. Healing would come. I think most of us, if we had a dear friend like that who asked us, even if we didn't know the kid, we probably would do something like this. Right? I would hope. I mean, it might be a bit uncomfortable. You might not know the kid. You might not know the son or daughter. It's kind of an unfortunate situation, but for the sake of the child of your friend, you do it. For the sake of your friend, you do it. don't want anybody to suffer like that. But then again, if we're honest with ourselves, a few of us might still hesitate. I know there's times in my life I have. We would come up with some excuse of why we can't because, well, even if they're a friend and we really like them, well, maybe we say, well, we're not good with kids. You know, there's somebody better out there, maybe somebody who knows them, maybe a parent of a friend, or, you know, I know this great family counselor. They helped me and my wife out years ago. Maybe they can help you. I got this great pastor. Maybe he can go do something. I really don't have a gift for that. I don't want to get involved. I mean, sometimes it's those uncomfortable situations that we don't want to touch, right? It's really unfortunate, but it's true. And so sometimes we just hesitate, even when it's a good thing. And at this, your friend just drops this bombshell on you. They say, listen, the stuff my kid's into, if they don't stop soon, well, they're going to die. The stuff is going to kill them. I'm not asking you to do anything but just to speak with them. At least try to get them to speak with me. I'll do the rest. Just let them know that I love them and that I miss them and I want them to come home. Deep down, they know they've gone too far. They know that their lives are broken. They just need someone to remind them that there's safety and there's healing here at home. With a life at stake like that, who among us would ever refuse that request, especially of a dear friend? I hope none of us. And yet, the truth is, especially in context of our gospel reading for today, we see people refusing this all of the time. So often we read this story and we think only in terms of the love of God for this prodigal child. We normally call it the prodigal son, that no matter who we are or what we've done or how far we've ran from our heavenly Father, He'll always welcome us back because He always loves us. And this is the purest example of the gospel that I can think of. It's beautiful how God still loves us no matter what. And if that's you, if you've been running from God, God does love you. And He wants you to come home. He's waiting for you, just like that desperate father. And that God loves you even if you've been away for a while. Because, again, He's just like your friend. But the truth is when Jesus begins to tell this story, He doesn't say it's a story about a prodigal son. He doesn't say it's a story of a wayward child. He actually says, look, this is a story about a man, a father, who had 2 sons. And if we look closely at the story, we find that both of the children play a huge role because both of these kids have hearts that were very far away from their father. And the son that is not reconciled with his father, with God, if we follow the allegory of this, isn't the son who ran off, it's the son who stayed home. Jesus' point is that it's really easy to tell the people who live in the world as though God were dead, as if they were dead to God, as if they didn't care. But the world is also full of people who claim to be in a relationship with the Father, and yet their hearts are nothing like their heavenly Father's. It wasn't just that the second son was bitter at his brother. It's that the heart of his father was like the heart of your friend. It's absolutely broken for the sake of this lost child. And if that son's heart was like his father, the bitter brother, the elder brother, when his brother returned, he would have rejoiced too because his heart would have been just as broken for his brother. In fact, he would have done anything to bring his brother home because he knew that the wages of sin is death. Anything that we do that doesn't lead us towards God leads us to either a physical or a spiritual death, and neither is a place that we ever want to be. He should have had that overjoyed state. In fact, the request of the friend who wants your help in reconciling their children to them wasn't just a story that I made up. It's actually something that God has directly asked us to do. In fact, He's demanded it. And it's the heart of this tale of 2 sons, as John MacArthur puts it, which, by the way, is an excellent book, A Tale of 2 Sons. We often call it the Great Commission, that we're supposed to bring all of the world back into a relationship with God. Bring everybody home so they can know the love of their Father. But I think Paul puts this commission best when he says, in one of our readings from today, it's a slightly different translation, that we're representatives of Christ. Yours says ambassadors. And through us, God is calling you, that's a wayward children, and we beg you on behalf of Christ to become reunited with God. I know it seems like a daunting and uncomfortable task for some of us, including myself sometimes. We're sometimes afraid to step up, afraid to even start up that conversation, but in reality, God isn't asking us to fix anyone. He's not asking us to change anyone or do anything terribly difficult. He'll do all of that. He just wants for us to tell the wayward child, his children, that their Father loves them and He wants them home and that He wants to talk. And if they would only open that door, God would do the rest. It says this in Revelation. This is actually something that somebody said to me at Hume Lake. We were talking earlier. He says, look, I'm standing at the door and I'm knocking, and if anyone listens to my voice and they open the door, I'll come in. I said this was something that came up at Hume Lake because during one of the worship services, one of the folks there had been separated from God. And they told me, they said, I just prayed to God, not that I'm coming home, not that I'm doing anything, not that I'm ready to work things out. It just says, God, I'm just going to open the door just a little bit to see what happens. And God completely changed his life. And I'd love to tell you about that story, but instead, he's actually invited himself, been willing to come up here and tell you himself. And so I'd like to invite Sean up here to tell his experience. Thank you very much, Sean. Many of you guys know Sean Ulin. He's been a long-time member of our congregation. There you go, brother. Oh.
So for my journey towards God, it started really when I was 11. Before then, it was just little kids. You do what your parents ask you to do because that's all you know. However, once I turned 11, my parents told me that I was adopted and the story behind it. My biological parents were 16. The mother was a drug user, abused me, and almost killed me. The father walked out, and the grandparents didn't even want me. Soon after that, I just lost control of my entire life. I became depressed a few days later, and I've been depressed constantly for the past 10 years, and I was suicidal for half of them. It got to those points because I've always focused on all the mistakes. I constantly heard, why can't you be like your cousin, the perfect Harvard graduate cousin? So I just ended up putting it on my back and just carrying it all these years, really. And I always ended up asking myself the same questions over and over. Why don't you guys want me? Why didn't you want me? Why did you abuse me, leave me? Why didn't you want me? Just kept asking them over and over again. So I ended up isolating myself behind walls of jokes and information. If I felt like I was getting too close, I'd just make fun of them so that I wouldn't have to become emotional to anyone or for anyone. I didn't trust anybody. There were those that were good friends, but I didn't share anything really about me. For 10 years, basically, I trusted no one but myself, and looked after for no one but myself. I didn't even cry for the past 3 years once, not even when my grandpa died a month ago, the only grandparent really that I knew. I didn't even share a single bit of emotion then. If something bad happened, I just put it on my back and went on walking by myself. And then it would eventually get to that point where I would just explode. I was suspended multiple times. I bullied others, and I got bullied. For church, the only reason I went, as well as go to youth group, was that I could have a good time and hang out with my friends that didn't believe in God at all. For high school, whoever was a friend that I considered there only knew that my name was Sean. Everything else was a lie for them. For lunch, I would hang out with the Mexicans so that I wouldn't have to talk at all, really, because most of them predominantly spoke Spanish as their first language, so all you learn really is how to cuss in Spanish playing soccer and how to play soccer, so I like that point. At that same time, I started using drugs, alcohol, smoking cigarettes, and I eventually reached a point where I actually considered killing myself. And during the summer of 2009, I was all set to do so 2 separate times. Luckily, though, I had 2 friends that were able to convince me that that was not the best idea for me to make, so I didn't do that. Despite that, though, I was already hurting myself, and then I started cutting myself during that summer. My life was just horrible at that point. At that time, my only defense of interacting with anyone was by acting mean to them, being a comedian all the time, just always joking around, make it seem like I'm always so happy. And if something made me happy, I would do it no matter what the consequences were. I mean, just wanted to have fun and be happy. The only time I ever talked to God was to cuss him out when I was having trouble, even for the most trivial of things. I didn't believe in him. It was just good to have someone else to blame other than myself. For almost 10 years, really, I've basically been on my own island, just by myself. It wasn't until I had hit a rock bottom and started digging with a plastic spoon through the solid rock that I finally figured it out. While at Team Lake during one of the church services, I, as Patrick said, opened up a door to God and felt him inside of me. For the first time in over 3 years, I cried in the cabin alone that night, right before dinner. And the next day, I shared what I had been going through for the first time in my life with anyone. Mainly because that if we wanted to make the youth open and trusting for everyone there, just actually know that you have someone that you could talk to, then we would all have to open up, and especially me, since I was one of the leaders for once. So for basically the next hour and a half, I was hyperventilating, crying uncontrollably, and I was about to pass out. Before that, the most I shared was my name, Sean, and a made-up story, which I was pretty good at. However, I actually did share what had been going through my life for so long that I've just kept by myself. And once I did, I felt relief, calm, truly happy, and I'm no longer stressed out all the time. I basically finally have some faith in God, because before then it was, why would he allow so much pain, so much hurt to go on in the world and with people if he really existed? It wasn't until after that camp I figured it out. Now, for those of you that don't know, I work for an after-school program for the YMCA at Fairgrove Elementary School. That's basically like, it's like the Inglewood School, really, of this area. It's a school that has a whole lot of families that struggle a bit, broken families, kids who are adopted, who are in foster care, anger issues, they struggle with homework, kids who have special needs. I mean, a whole lot of them have a whole lot of problems, really. And for me, I've basically gone through at least almost every single one of their problems, really. I've had trouble with math, trouble learning, but I'm able to connect with them on a much closer, more personal level, and they trust me a little bit easier than like the other people I work with because of all the pain I've caused myself over the years. The best example of the pain that I've given myself, really, is the amount of relationships I've had in my entire life, really. For my definition of the word girlfriend, a girlfriend's like someone you take out on a couple dates, not just one. For me, I've had not a single girlfriend in my life because I was just afraid of turning into my biological father. Go out with them, mess them up, get them pregnant, and then just leave like a coward. I've just been afraid of that for so long, but I almost did that once, really. This one girl in college, we went out on a friendly outing, really, paid for our own lunches at the mall in Santa Maria for Subway, good food. Then we exchanged numbers, we looked at sports cards, we ended up going our separate ways right after making plans to see a play at our school for our class that we were taking together. However, I ended up dropping the class the next day, and I deleted her number and never saw or called her again, basically. Because I was just, despite not trying to be not like my biological father, I basically ended up almost exactly like him. It wasn't until I was finally able to get over my pain and actually accept help from the others who were willing to offer it and God that I was finally able to figure out that I can actually make choices for myself now. Ever since returning from that camp, I have become a different person. And you could just ask like the youth or Patrick, obviously. I've not really made a single joke about his being from Alabama at all since we've come back, which is a huge adjustment. So, I ended up in an unfamiliar world, and I just got used to it eventually, similar to like the Prodigal Son. He ended up saying, "Screw you, Father, give me my money," left, and then he ended up in a strange land with just people that weren't really friends. They were just people to hang out with and have what he thought was fun with. They ended up ditching him once he needed their help, truly. So he was friendless, like I was in a sense. He was in a strange land, all by himself, stuck on a deserted island, and he ended up working as a slave, basically, feeding pigs while he was starving himself. Then he figured it out. Wait, if I was with my family, I could still have food. May not be able to be the son, but I could still be the slave. So he prepared this huge, elaborate speech that we would have to do for me in high school for speech and debate. And he was all set. I'm not worthy to be your son. Take me as your slave. So once he got home, though, his father just ran out, shut him up, and said, quickly, bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Get the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. He was dead. So basically, like the prodigal son, I was lost for so long. I was starving. I was just basically in ragged clothes without actually being in ragged clothes. I've always hid behind everything that I could find. It wasn't until I was able to finally figure it out, like the prodigal son did, that I was able to realize that I was a lost person, that I was basically dead. But now that I finally figured out where I am, what I want, how to share and be trusting, finally figuring out how to trust others again, I am able to finally become alive once again. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sean. Guys, it's like I said, all it takes is for us to get that conversation going. I didn't do anything with Sean. That was God. Hume Lake didn't do that. Was God. I encourage you so much, for those in your life, get that conversation started and witness the miracle of what God does when that conversation takes place. It changes lives.